Car Care Talk Show. I'm having so much fun with Justin here, and I can just stop laughing. He's so funny. So let me present you my host first. He's Justin, and
Uh-huh.
I just want you to say to the audience who you are. I know
Sure.
everyone know who you are, but I mean, let's just
Everybody.
present yourself, who you are, what do you do, and I'm just so happy to have you here today.
You know what? Thank you so very much. And if you can't tell, I'm coming from San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a little chilly up here. No, my wife was not feeling really well, and we have three kids at home that I didn't want to leave. So I'm literally in the only place in my house where I have a little bit of peace and quiet, and it's like the walk-in closet slash junk room. Man, let me tell you, it is. You be glad that this because we all have that one room
Yeah.
or that one drawer, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got a room like that, and I'm in it. But you know what? Thanks to the miracle of Zoom, it looks like I'm at the Golden Gate Bridge. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Justin Guarini, and I love helping influencers and entrepreneurs profit under pressure. And so you might have seen me if you're in America here on the first season of American Idol in 2002, where I competed and made it all the way to the finale, performing in front of 30 million people week in and week out. Or you might have seen me in one of the six Broadway shows I've been in New York City. Or you might have seen me if you're here in America popping up on your screen for the past 6 years as Lil Sweet, the Diet Dr. Pepper character who gives sweet treats to deserving folks as a part of the Diet Dr. Pepper national commercial campaign. I wear a lot of different hats, but the hat that I have been wearing lately, in addition to entertainment, is the hat of core confidence coach. And I just want to thank you so very much, Cindy, for having me here in my junk room and in your office. And I cannot wait to dive into core confidence, to dive in what it is that you do with Ladies Car Care, because we met on Clubhouse
Yes.
in a Clubhouse room, and I just absolutely fell in love with your message, what it is that you do, and I'm so honored that you would have me here to speak today.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you. And before we dive in, I just want to
Mhm.
brag on something. After you say yes on that you were gonna be here in our show today. I'm part of this mom's community, and I just took a
Uh-huh.
screenshot of your page, and I'm like, guess who's gonna be in my show? And I put your face and I mean your picture, and everyone have like over I don't know how many comments. It's like, oh my gosh, please share the link when the show goes live. And everyone's like, I remember seeing him on American Idol. Oh my god, I remember him. And all the ladies were like talking
That's
about
awesome.
beautiful things about you. So I really have
Right.
to brag saying, hey, I'm with Justin now.
Well, thank you. You can say you visited Justin in his junk room, like just a nice slice of humanity.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. Because like you said, I'm actually focusing on confidence. And
Yeah.
because what we do is we help women, especially women in the auto industry, to gain confidence in everything that they do, mostly when they bring their cars to the repair shop and dealerships. And I remember that I hearing from you when we were in the clubhouse, the way you were talking about this area, it got my attention because I do own a repair shop myself with my husband. And one of the things that I noticed is the lack of confidence from female customers when they come to the repair shop. I understand that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of repair shops out there. They take advantage of people. There are all type of mechanics and dealerships. But one of the things that I really believe in my heart is like if we have that confidence in us, I mean, no one is going to come and tell you that are lying to you in your face. So I just want you to give you the microphone a little bit and share a little bit about your experience and why you want to give us regarding this topic of confidence.
Absolutely. And I love that. I think so many people are taken advantage of at times in a market that is so technical, right? The fixing of a car used to be, I remember my dad, I have four stepbrothers and four stepsisters and three stepbrothers, and they all had Volkswagens. And my dad could literally undo a few bolts and whatnot and take out the engine, carry it from the back of the VW bug. in the garage and just mess with it. Now he's an engineer, right? Like he loves all that stuff, right? But what I'm saying is that now you have to have like practically a degree in rocket science to be able to deal with all the electronics and all the various things. So when we come into that being the consumer, the customer, and we walk in and we're like, oh, I've got my whatever car that has a ton of electronics in it, we rely on those people to give us a straight and honest answer. And yet, you and I both know that there are certainly reputable companies out there that will give you the straight deal, but there are plenty of them who won't. And when they see someone coming in, especially a woman,
Yeah.
right? You know this better than I
Yeah.
could. I'm not gonna mansplain it. I just know just from the stereotype,
Yeah.
right? That women are often taken advantage of in these situations. That when hello child,
Yeah.
the lovely advantages of working from home. Um, when women are taken advantage of, one of the ways in order to walk into that situation or any situation where you feel like you might be at a disadvantage is to have the first pillar of four pillars in what I call core confidence. Core confidence is based on four key skills that you can develop and apply to four key areas of your life. Those key skills are clarity, commitment, creativity, and certainty. And the four areas of life that you can apply those four key skills to are your body, your spiritual connection, your relationships, whether that's a significant other, your children, your family, and your business. And so when I think of, okay, if I were to be, and I don't even have to be a woman, I don't know anything about cars. I have my car and I'm going to take it in. It has a lot of sensitive electronics in it. What do I need to have? The first thing that I need to have when I'm walking in the door, and that is clarity. Now, I'm not going to take the user manual and figure out all the things that need to. No, 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 no. I just need to get a little bit of an education. Just do a little bit of homework and research on it, right? And fortunately, we have this thing in our hand that now you can't see, but this thing that we can ask any question to and get practically any answer, right? So when you walk into a situation like that, where you feel like you're at a disadvantage, clarity is one of the keys. Knowing what it is that you want, having at least an idea, because I guarantee you, if you with just one or two words walk into a dealership or walk into a service station and
Mhm.
start talking about your car from a just a moderately educated position, that person is going to respect you a little bit differently. Now, if they're a shark, they're going to see, oh yeah, she knows a few things, but more often than not, you're going to be able to present someone who is a little bit more knowledgeable, someone who will not be taken advantage of. And again, clarity on what, not just what it is that you want. Let's say we don't get clarity on the car at all. We don't know anything about the car, but let me do a little bit of research on how people will take advantage of other people in that situation. What are the things I need to watch out, which I'm sure you discuss, right? Getting clear on how you get taken advantage of and how not to be taken advantage of and
Mhm.
how to check someone who's taking advantage of you. So that's why clarity is such a foundational element of confidence for me.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you said, I mean, one of the first things that I always tell my audience is you don't have to know everything about your car. I mean, that's not the case. I mean, you don't have to be a savvy mechanic saying, "Hey, I know how to take off my engine." No, but I mean, at least do your homework, like you just said, to know your own car. I mean, your own car, because one of the things that when I ask my customers, okay, you bring your car in, what is the year, make, and model of your car? And a lot of them said, oh, I have a blue Honda or I have a red Toyota. That for me is like, I mean, you don't even know what car you have. I mean, at least the basic information, what type of oil your car use. And when they do their homework and they know their own car, I mean, they won't be taken advantage of, even they don't know
Right,
much about cars. And when it
right.
comes to homework, like you said, clarity of knowing what type of shop you're visiting. What if you go to
Yes,
Google and check the
yes,
reviews and all of that,
yes,
right?
yes, absolutely. 100%. I love that. And I love that you're providing this service for people in general, especially women, who often will, from what I understand, again, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to mansplain, who will feel at a disadvantage in a very male dominated industry.
Exactly. Now that you mention a male dominated, I think that's something that it's nailing there because I mean, you said, well, we're in the 2021 now. I mean,
Hmm.
I thought this was not happening anymore, but it keeps happening. I mean, I remember, and I was reading a lot of books when before women was not even allowed to drive. I mean, men's were the one who were allowed to drive only. Women
Right.
has to stay home, and
Right.
how the time we're changing, but it's still that thing that, and even our parents, I mean, I was raised by my dad that I don't supposed to touch my car. That's a men thing. That was something that I was not allowed to open the hood. I don't need to get my hands dirty. And that culture that our parents were teaching us is like so hard in culture, because
Yeah.
now we see a generation that is thinking that we are the princess all the time and that we're not allowed to do certain things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a challenge because my parents are very open, yet they come from a generation. My mom's in her 70s, my stepdad's in his 80s, my father is in his 80s. Both of them, both of my father and my stepfather, are in their late 80s, and they come from, my stepfather is a very Italian male, right? And that is a very machismo, like very, very masculine sort of upbringing that he had, especially in the time where he was born. And then my father is a Southern African American man,
Mhm.
and so I mean, so many strong opinions and
Yeah,
so many of just things that were ingrained in them. And while they've evolved, while they've grown, while they're both very open and liberal people, to an extent, um, it just really, I guess, boils down to, I guess, really the second pillar of what I call core competence, is really once we get clear on what it is that we want, for example, or what the environment is. If you take this example, we're very clear and we examine the stories about our upbringing, then we say to ourselves very simply, does this serve me or does it not serve me?
hmm.
Very simple question with very complicated answers.
Oh
But
yeah.
once we get clear on that story, on our upbringing, on the things that are happening in our lives, the stories that are playing in our heads, rather, then we can begin to make a choice. We
Yeah.
can decide whether or not we want to continue that line of thinking. And there are some traditions that are beautiful,
Yeah.
right? There's a reason why, after who knows how many hundreds or thousands of years, that people will get together of the Jewish faith and have a Seder. That is something that has lasted through time because is a rallying point and a tradition that helps to continue to tell the story of the Jewish faith and the Hebrew race, right? Well, we also have those stories that tell us that, oh, you run like a girl, oh, you throw like a girl, those things. And it's up to us, once we get clear on what those stories are in
Yeah.
our lives, to make the decision. And the Latin root of the word decide means to cut off from. So when we decide, it means we cut off from any other option and we move forward in the direction of the thing that we have decided upon. And so that commitment then comes down to, okay, I've gotten clarity on this story. It doesn't serve me in this case. What am I committed not just to doing, but who am I committed to being in order to change this story, not just for myself, but for my daughter, for the
Exactly.
women in my community. You talk about your mother's group, right? Who am I committed to being in order to create a new narrative and to gather those people around me so
Yeah.
that we can join forces to author a new story for a new generation?
Yeah, and I just love that what you're saying, because I'm really think that if we take that decision right now, we're talking about cars in the auto industry right now. So if we
Hmm.
take that decision as a moms, of a parents, of learning a little bit and then transfer this knowledge, because this is not something that, oh, it's kind of knowledge, it's a life skill. I mean, now to your kids, I mean, believe me, I see so many teenagers coming to the shop, bring their cars, and they don't know much about cars. And let's say they're stranded off the middle of the road, or they have, I mean, a car accident or car emergency situation. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to do. And I mean, in our hands, we have in our hands how to avoid so many car accidents out there with the teenagers and the young drivers. So if we take that decision of learning a little bit more about our cars and transfer that knowledge to our kids, we are going to change our next generation. So I really love that you just mentioned that, because
Yes. And I hear what you're saying, and something you said inspired the thought in my mind. So many of the children now, and this is not a fault, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It's just the way society is, the sort of, oh, I can have it today, the sort
yeah,
of instant gratification of it all, is that one of the things I've tried and continue to battle against with my children, be it my 16-year-old daughter, who is very intelligent, very independent, or my 10-year-old son or my 8-year-old son, is this sense of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness that, like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
exactly.
I don't know. All right. And what I mean by learned helplessness is that it's just like, oh, I've just learned that I can go, I don't know. And what do we do as parents? We're like, oh, we'll figure it out for you. We'll take care of you. We love you. We want to help you. Right. But there was something to be said for our grandparents and our parents who told us three words: figure it
You're out.
out.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
that is
Right.
right.
Right. And so and sometimes it was harsh. And yet we, out of love, want to shield our children sometimes from that harshness, the harsh reality of the world. But what I always tell my children is, I love you, but I will not love you to death. Right. I
Yeah.
will not love you to your death. And so you hit the nail right on the head when you can author a new narrative and create a new story. You can actually eradicate one of the biggest challenges that our children and a lot of younger generations face, which is that learned helplessness. And you can get rid of the sting of figure it out, and you can
Yeah.
create a new, more soft glove, gentle hand approach
Yeah.
to a tradition that really does serve.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true, And most, because most of my audience are moms, and they usually have teenagers, and I hear that all the time. Them like, "Whoa, you have to transfer this knowledge," and they are like, "But you know what? My son says I don't want to learn. That's
Yeah,
boring. It's boring,"
yeah,
and they just think they're boring. And the first question that they ask me is, how I can make this life skill interesting so they can
yeah,
want to learn. And I'm like, you have to have fun with it. That's my first answer, is like, if you as a parent have fun with it, even you're 3 years old. I have a 3 years old. And
yeah,
sometimes when we are changing the tire, we're just doing something. He's with the flashlight. Even he's not doing
yeah.
anything. He's there, but he's seeing what his parents are doing. So I think if
Mhm.
you as a parent have fun with the life skill and their kids are watching you, you nail it down. I mean, you're just, I mean, sharing that knowledge with them.
100%. Play is the key. Now,
Yeah,
because, for example, my two boys, if I didn't go, hello, let's play, they'd be
I
like this
know.
all day.
I know those
Right.
phones.
And now, look, it's a thing. We live in a society now where, mom and dad or non-binary parent or guardian most likely have to work, right? And so we
Yeah,
have to do, and now with the COVID and with the way the world is, we're doing it from home. And there's
yeah,
just a time where you're
exactly.
like, look at the screen, enjoy, have a good time. You're doing what you're doing. I'm gonna go over here and do what I do. Please just give me a moment, right? I had to. Sometimes you'll see me cut in and out, kind of like this. It's
Yeah,
because usually I'm telling a child off. I had to tell my son off. I'm like, I am doing an interview right now. And so, when it comes back around to the idea of play. One of my favorite stories, and when you were talking about changing the tire with the flashlight, To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the most beautiful movies that you can watch, based on a great book. And Gregory Peck was an actor in it, and just wonderful, wonderful performances. And the director, when he was working with children on the set, um, uh, didn't just pop the children onto the set now like you would and say, all right, lights, camera, action, let's go. Kids now are used to that, right?
Yeah.
Back then, in the black and white days, if you will, what he did was the most genius thing. He said, okay, in my big sound stage, I want to take all the cameras and I want you to put them 20, 30 feet away. Let's move all the cameras off the set. Let's move them out so you can barely see them beyond the shadow that the lights create, right? And what he did is he got on the set with the kids and he just played. And he was like, hey, check this out. It was a beautiful porch and house in one of those old Southern houses, and they put dirt around, and it was just a gorgeous thing. And they just checked out the paint and they walked on the porch and they just looked around, and there was a rocking chair, and he was like, hey, go sit and just rock in that rocking chair. And they just got used to just being there in this world, right? They put on their costumes and everything. And they said, okay, hey, let's just play a little bit. Let's talk about the lines and what you're supposed to say and why you're saying. And the whole point of the story is he played, and as he did it, in 30 minutes later, he had the cameras move a little closer, but not too close,
Hi.
right? And then he would say, here, let's do this. And you know what? Let's like, why don't you stand here and you stand over there, and then say what you're supposed to say to one another. And as that was happening, cameras got a little bit closer, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, we're going to try, and cameras, so on and so forth. And then eventually the cameras got set to where they were. And he said, okay, we're going to do everything that you just did, but don't worry about these things. Just talk to one another and let's just keep playing. Let's just keep playing.
Let's just keep.
And let's just keep playing. And so whenever I want to, I mean, look, my 10-year-old's old enough now that I can have a serious conversation with him. But when I really want to get into it, and teach him something, I always have to remind myself that if I can play my way into it, and if I can in my way bring the cameras and the lesson, if the cameras represent the lesson, if I can bring the cameras closer and closer and closer while still maintaining the idea of play and fun, it is going to be so much easier to get the lessons across, because I'm using
Yeah.
the vehicle of play, which is something that we all do or have done, but that we forget is
Yeah.
one of the most powerful vehicles that we can use to learn.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been trying that for a long time with my kids. I mean, I have four kids. So
Mhm.
I have four kids
Bless you.
in different ages. So I know I have toddlers, I have tweens, I have teens, and I'm like, you have to use that card in different levels with your kids. But what
Yeah.
I love most about this is that you build confidence playing, because that's another powerful thing. Because what happens if you
Yeah.
don't go there with your kids and playing with
Yeah.
different life skills? When kids start growing and they're teens, it's more difficult to just trying to teach some things and their confidence level. Oh my God, that breaks
Yeah.
my heart. Mostly
Yeah.
little, I mean, and teenager girls, how their
Yeah.
confidence is so low and they just feel not worth it. It's like, oh no, we have to do something with this for these girls. I mean, to build that confidence again. And
Yes.
it's just, I mean, it just breaks my heart just seeing those teenager girls like that.
I have one, and I have witnessed over the years, my child go from someone who would put on a little tutu and dance in the hallway and just be so free. I mean, to the point where it would bring me to tears when she would dance to like Beyonce Halo or something, and you just see this radiant just freedom on
Yes.
her face. And then social media comes into the picture at some point. And then uh, she gets a little bit older, and hormones and her friends and all the sort of the, oh, do I have enough likes or followers or subscribers, all that comes, those vanity metrics, those ego based metrics,
Yeah.
right, come in. And slowly but surely and just regular life traumas and challenges that people, especially teenagers, now have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Because teenagers now are so much more exposed to the world and have access to everything,
Everything.
right?
One click.
Everything. One click, and they can see the underbelly of humanity if
Yeah.
that's what they want to see, right? Whether it's on Netflix or on YouTube or what. So all of that comes in, and you begin to see almost like it was almost like a beautiful flower. I can't think of one at the moment, like a rose, and you just see where normally it was face open to the sun, just you see it close up, and I just saw her tighten up and close up, and it happens to all of us, right? But the speed at which it happened with my daughter and the way I see it happening with teenagers now is just lightning fast from one moment to the next. And so when we can get back in touch with that play and that creativity, really, which, this talk is just somehow it's just flowing perfectly into what it is that I teach. And so we talked about clarity of the stories, right? We talked about making the commitment to being that person or being that new narrative, not what we're doing so much as who we are being. And then when we get clear and when we make that commitment and when we decide, that's when we open up the possibilities that creativity offers to us. And that creativity, another way of saying it, is that play, that spirit of anything is possible. And okay, I want this thing. I'm clear about what it is that I want. I have made a decision that that's what I want, and I've made a decision on who I'm going to be in order to have that thing. Now let's get creative about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to show up.
Mhm.
There's a man named Shaman Durek who is a fifth generation shaman who invites has invited CEOs to come to this. I mean, and pay. You want to talk about the immense amount of money these CEOs and entrepreneurs have paid to work with this shaman. And he was telling a story the other night on Clubhouse where they came into a room and shaman's sitting there. And as they file in, these 4 or 5 big wig CEOs who have paid many, 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 many dollars for this experience come in, and all they see on the ground are toys, toy cars, dolls and blocks and crayons. And Shaman invited them to just sit down and play. Just
Wow.
play with one, right? And play and play and play and play. Now he didn't elaborate beyond that, but he said that those CEOs, some of them were kind of like, I paid all this money to play with Barbies. Like, what is this? But a few weeks later, he got phone calls from them, who some of the same people who were like, well, I can't play, blah, 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 but gave in and played and trusted. Weeks later, we're like, you know what? I feel so much more creative. I feel so much more like I got the spark back. And it all comes back to just
Play.
playing.
I love that.
So simple, but we forget about it, right? We let all the pressures and the bills and the noise of life get in the way. But more often than not, when we let go of that pressure, we reduce that pressure and reduce that noise and play and release our creativity, whether it's just something as simple as coloring or drawing or sitting down and plunking something on the whatever it is for
Yeah.
you, whatever that creative juice is, that thing that you loved when you were a kid but you gave up because you had to step into the real world, is an avenue that actually you can pass through and use to ignite the spark back into your business or your relationships or your spiritual connection or even just your body and your relationship with your body.
Yeah, I mean, I I love that, so much wisdom. I mean, I love it because if you see, I mean, we didn't plan exactly the conversation, but I love the step that we're taking because it's like we start with the moms, the lack of confidence with the moms, look, then with the kids, but then we come back to the same place
Yeah,
because I mean, moms transfer this to the kids, but then when they start playing and building these
yeah,
relationships, they
yeah,
have to actually, I mean, teach confidence to their kids. and
yeah,
and I love that because we are just building that. And
Yeah.
see, I have my 2 and my
I
10-year old
know.
as well. So
Yes, of course. Hey.
I mean, I just love that because I mean that's when we start building confidence in our kids playing. And when they come, let's talk about teenagers. They come to the repair shop, but then because they're being building that confidence, no one is gonna come and tell them what to do, or no one is gonna come and lie to them, because their confidence is so strong that I mean there's nothing that is gonna break them. And I just love that.
Yeah.
Just I
And
love that trace in
simple,
there. Simple.
simple, simple, right? It's amazing what you can do when, you take a car, for example. It's like in the summer when you go out and wash your car, right? If you choose to do it in the driveway, or if you have that kind of way of washing your car, it takes sometimes 5 times as long for me to wash the car with my son, right? My youngest son. Yet there is something to be said for the investment of time that I'm making. And you want to talk about a return, an ROI, return on investment. Yeah, it may take me 5 times longer to wash my car, but the fact that I can teach my son in a digital world where things are so intangible that he can
Yes.
pick up something with his hands, apply it, and get a job done, where then he, in that moment right there, can get that same sort of instant gratification that you get from pressing a button on a phone or
Exactly.
whatever, right? But it happens in the real world, and it happens without the screen and all the things that come with the screen. That's invaluable. That's
Yeah.
absolutely invaluable. And when somebody comes to your shop and they pick up a wrench and they just go like right like that on a lug nut or whatever it is, it shows you what I know, little I know about, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that alone is just a tiny investment, a tiny investment,
Yes.
a tiny investment. And over time, with money, right? We know that those tiny, consistent investments over time will grow and pay dividends in the future. And it's the
Oh
same thing.
yeah, it's gonna pay it off. I mean, it's gonna pay it off. And I mean, I remember I do have a 14 years old. And we usually before the pandemic, we used to do workshops at the shop. So we invite all the local females in there, and
Yeah.
we just teach them about cars. But we did it in a really fun way. I had my 13 years old back then, and my husband, all three, just walking in the car and say, "Hey, my daughter was like, hey, do you know where you can find your VIN number? I can teach you." And she
Yeah.
was getting it was, and
I don't even know where to find that.
a lot of moms were like, "How you know? I mean, you're 13, 10 years old, and you know this
Right.
stuff." And she was like, "Of course I know that."
Yes.
For
But
them,
what
it's
you're,
so simple.
yes. But you know what's so interesting? And again, this is how our conversation is flowing through when we talk about building core confidence. We've talked about clarity. We've talked about commitment. We've talked about opening up that creativity, and the waterfall of that clarity, commitment, and creativity. When we really apply that,
Yeah.
it leads to the final C of core confidence, which is certainty. What is certainty? At the end of the day, the simplest definition I can think of certainty is that trust in yourself. And if there's any gift that I want to give my children, it's that and it took me 42 years now, really, like, I'm still learning it. It's a lifetime skill, right? But
Of
like,
course.
it really took me 40, I would say 41 or so years to really truly plant the flag and deep and say, I am going to trust myself once and for all. And it took a pandemic for it to happen, right? But
Yeah.
like, it's that gift that we can give to our children is trusting yourself, because when you trust yourself and your opinions, and you can stand tall or taller than before in who you are, the sort of dark alleys that our kids can go down, they can stop themselves. And when their friends are like, hey, come on, let's go there, they're like, no,
Exactly.
no, right? Why? Because they trust
And
themselves. They
themselves.
trust that their opinion and their power and their desire for what it is that they want is valid, and it is not reliant upon the approval of others. Now, easier said than done. Easier said than done, right? But the more that we can build that trust, the more that we can build that trust. Yes, mistakes are going to happen. Yes, our children are going to make some poor choices. But at the end of the day, the more that we can then again leverage those poor choices, those mistakes, whatever you want to call them, and help them to reroute the shame and blame game and turn it into a life lesson and a teachable moment, the more we're going to build trust, not only in our own parenting, but in they themselves, right? And so that when they get to be 18 and plus and they go out into the real world and they make the mistakes and the poor choices, they're going to be more equipped to make better choices and mistakes that won't cost them so much.
Yeah.
And that certainty is just a bedrock that you can build a life of value and of service on.
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. And when you were talking, just I was just remembering. I don't even remember the name of the book that I read, but I remember that this author was saying, when you have your kids, you have this like a DVD. Let's put it like a DVD player that is on blank. And the
Yeah.
first time that they hear something is the time that they record in their minds for longest time. So let's say, for example, my daughter, she's not allowing to have phone yet. She's 14 years old and she's not allowed
Bless
to
you.
have phone.
Oh,
We have tablets and she's just allowed to use it for if she's gonna watch videos that are gonna give something to her. At first, it was a fight. It was not easy because all her friends have phone,
oh
all
yeah.
the school,
Oh
everyone has phone, and she's like, but why I can't? And I'm like,
yes.
because I'm not their parents, I'm your
Yeah.
mom, I'm not their
Yeah.
mom, so you're gonna
Good for
follow
you.
the rules that are in the house. So she was like kind of frustrated, and I'm like, you know what, let's do something. I'm gonna allow you to use the tablet, but if you learn something and I'm gonna teach you. And she's like, I don't know what to learn, it's so boring. Okay, you know what, let me teach you how to do desserts. And she was like, dessert? I don't know. So I start teaching her things, and now she cooks better than me. I mean, she was, and all this pandemic, she's like,
Yeah.
wow, she makes some desserts that were good. At the beginning, she didn't want to.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're there, like keep telling them, I mean, and showing them in a fun way, I mean, they can learn anything. So I mean, when
Absolutely.
coming back to that, the DVD is like a lot of moms is like, but my teen, it's already there. She don't want anything. She's already on the phone. She don't want what I can do. And the only thing that I said is just love them. I mean,
Yeah.
just love them. I mean, they're your kids.
Yeah.
You can do the best you can and just love them. Sometimes love can break so many things.
Well, there's a season for everything,
Yeah.
right? Just like in the environment and in the world, there's, the four seasons. And there's a time that we are in now of winter, right? And a season of just kind of holding yourself close and internalizing thoughts, feelings, energies, and then you put a pandemic on top of that. Oy. But right. And what I love to do, and I gotta pull at my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter. I gotta be like, come on. And I recognize that at 15, 16, I was the same exact way, right? I didn't have a phone to stare at, but I had other things to
Yeah.
do. I'd go out and I'd play basketball with my friends, or I'd, play something, right? Or I would just play video games. That was it. That was my sort of thing. And um, it's not necessarily the amount of time that I try and spend with my daughter, especially my daughter, because my boys are like 10 and 8, and they're like all up. They take so much time, which I love, but it's not the amount of time; it's the intensity of the quality of the time that I spend with my daughter. And even though I know that she's kind of drifting away, as all children do when they get older, I know that if I continue to focus on the intensity of time, and it doesn't mean like we have to be doing something intense. I mean like the quality and the intensity of my focus, right? Like this gotta go away,
Yeah.
right? Phones gotta all these distractions have to go away. And I literally all I need to do is just lay on the bed, talk to my daughter about the things that are going on in her life, the drama with the friends and the
Oh yeah.
and like, sometimes she'll put on makeup, or sometimes I'll actually do some a beautiful thing called the work, which is something that a woman by the name of Byron Katie came up with, and it's a way of analyzing your thoughts or your feelings and saying, are these things true and do they serve me? And like, I mean, that's kind of like intense work. We did that one day when she was really feeling intense, but it when it comes to all of the distractions that we have as adults and then that our children have, I've found that the intensity again, that the quality of the time that I spend, which is why they call it quality time, right?
Yeah.
The intensity and the quality of the time that I spend is so much more important than the amount. And so going into what you're saying and dovetailing on what you're saying, just loving them through it is knowing that they're going to be with you for a little while and then they're going to drift away and then eventually they're going to come back. And it's just loving them through that entire experience and making sure that you spend quality, connected, focused, undistracted time with them, even if it's 5 minutes.
Yeah,
It's so
definitely.
much more powerful than an hour of, um, oh, yeah, oh, wait,
Yeah,
right,
totally
right.
agree.
And we're all guilty of it, myself
Yeah.
included. We're all guilty of it. No judgments here. Like,
Yeah, I think if we do it sometimes, we don't even feel it, but they're watching us. I mean,
yes, uh, my 6-year-old hears everything. Or my now, oh my God, he's almost 8 now. Oh my goodness, he'll be 8 in 5 days. He'll be 8 in 6 days, and he hears everything. And he's like the moon child who's like in a space cadet, right? Who like we're like, oh yeah, he's fine. Like he's bouncing around, and like we'll be saying something. I'm like, he doesn't hear anything, and all of a sudden, well, here's a little voice. He'll be like, I heard that. Like,
yeah,
or he'll
totally.
repeat. God, he'll repeat it, right?
Oh
Like
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
he'll
yeah.
repeat it back. I'm like, oh, and can't believe you heard that.
Yeah,
So
you know
they're
what?
always listening.
Yeah, something that happened a few days ago. I have a 3 years old, and I'm always in the office doing the interviews for the podcast. And he's not here with me, but he's over there in the living room. And the other time he came, he grabbed the microphone, and he's like, "Welcome to Ladies Car Care Talk Show. I'm Dominic." And I'm like, "How you know those things?" So he here, 3 years old. 3 years old. So there's a big proof that, I mean, that it's happening. But I mean,
Yeah.
my goodness, I just see the time and it's like we already
Oh,
have more than one time that we I mean
that's
plan
fine.
to. But I mean, I just love the conversation because I really
Me
feel
too.
that the audience is gonna take so much advantage of this because this is something really needed out there for moms, for their kids, and mostly in this area that we were talking about with my audience, that I mean feeling confidence, not just
Yeah.
parents but actually transferring with their kids. I think they're gonna get so much value on this
Oh, thank
conversation that
you.
we had today. And before saying goodbye, I just want to say that it is, what advice will you give them, and I don't know, in a short words that they can grasp and say, okay, I'm gonna keep that. And every time that I show up, and not just in that repair shop, but everywhere, like, because this is just not happen just in repair shop, it's in everywhere in their work. What are a couple things that you could say, keep this in your heart, because this is gonna help you to build confidence in yourself?
Hmm. Let me think about this one for a minute because it's important.
Yes.
It's very important. Something that I would say that you can carry with you always to help you remain confident. Something that I have worked with over the years and that many people in the entertainment industry make their living off of are stories. And if we can recognize that our thoughts, our actions, our words, as you so eloquently put it about some of the older generations, right? And the stories that they have and they implant in us, all of those actions, those words, those deeds are based on stories. And
Yeah.
far too often we allow other people, be it our parents, be it the mechanic in the repair shop, be it our friends,
Yeah.
people, our family we care about, we allow other people to author and write our stories. Yet, if we recognize that we have control of the stories around our body, we have control of the stories around our spiritual connection, whether that's God, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, the universe, spirit, the great nothing, if you're an atheist, whatever that is for you. If we recognize that we have control of the stories around our relationships with our significant others, our children, our family, and we have stories around our business, whether that's a product or an idea or a concept that you sell, or how to make money or how to keep money, those are all just a collective of stories, and those stories are the book of our life. And when we recognize that we are the authors, ultimately we hold the pen to our own story, then it gives us the power to truly not only change our lives, but by example, change the lives of the people around us, and allows us to be leaders from what we live. So whenever you come into a situation, be it in a mechanic shop or some interaction with your family or some interaction in business, or even when you look in the mirror, as I have done so many times and still have to fight against, and I say, that's not the person I want to see. Recognize that that is a story, and that you have a choice whether to continue to participate in that story and allow that story to be in the book of your life, or whether you can begin, and it takes time, to erase that story and not just do, but be someone who creates a better story for themselves that serves them. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes clarity, it takes commitment, it takes creativity, it takes certainty. But at the end of the day, you're not only doing it for yourself, but especially for the people listening right now who have children, you're doing it as a part of your legacy, because your children every single day are reading the book of your life, whether you recognize it or not. In your words, in your deeds, they are seeing your stories, and they are picking the pieces and parts of your story and putting it into the book of their life and writing it on the table of their heart. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, think about how you are the author of your children's stories, and what stories do you not only want for them, but for their children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, because that is how powerful you are, and that is how powerful the stories that you tell. So make sure that you always remember that you are the author of your story.
Oh my gosh, that was powerful. Now I'm no words with that. I mean, you hear it. This is so powerful. You know, you just what you just said right now. If you visualize it in your head, you just need a pen. Every time that you feel lack of confidence, remember of this pen that Justin just said, that you have the power of writing your own story. What a better way to finish this episode, because it's amazing. I mean, I just love it. I mean, if you actually think that this episode has it's been, I mean, so powerful for you, I mean, share it with your friends, with anyone who think they're gonna be beneficial for them. So thank you so much, Justin, for being part of this episode today. I really appreciate you and your time. And I mean, I hope that we can meet again another time and keep our conversation. But this was just powerful. Thank you again for being part of the Ladies Car Care Talk Show.
It's my pleasure, Cindy. Thank you for all that you do for your family, not only your own family, but your family of Ladies Car Care. And it was an honor and a pleasure to come to you from chilly San Francisco, aka my walk-in closet mess room.
I love it. Well, have a wonderful day, everyone. See you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Ladies Car Care Talk Show. For more resources from Cindy, or to join the Ladies Car Care Facebook community, you can follow the links in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and share with your friends.